Maybe you're sitting at a 160, a 162, and everyone around you is telling you that you're crushing it. You're already in the 80th percentile, you're killing it, they say. But deep down, you know the truth. That score isn't getting you into Harvard. It's not getting you a full ride to Columbia. It's barely getting you noticed. And the worst part is you've done everything right. You've read the books, you've done 30 full-length practice tests, and you're watching my YouTube videos every single day, and yet your score hasn't moved in weeks. Today, I'm going to show you exactly why that's happening and how we help students go from stuck at 160 to scoring 170, 175, and beyond. First, let's talk about something that happens to almost everyone studying for the LSAT, especially if you're stuck in the low 160s. You start doing more. You add on more study hours. You take more full LSAT exams, and you push yourself harder, yet your score does not move. It stays flat. Maybe it even drops. And that's when the frustration really kicks in. You think, how am I working this hard, and yet I'm still not improving? Let me explain exactly what's happening. Most people fall into what I call the false effort loop. It feels like you're doing everything right. You're putting in time, you're trying, you're exhausted, but the way you're studying is actually keeping you stuck. Here's how it works. First, you think doing more tests will raise your score. So you start taking full exams, 2, 3, sometimes even 4 a week. At first, it feels productive. You're busy, you're checking boxes, but under the surface, you're not actually fixing anything. You're not reviewing deeply. You're not spotting patterns in your mistakes. You're not training your thinking. You're just doing reps. And your brain gets tired. You lose focus, you guess more, you finish sections and can't remember why you picked the answers you did. But instead of slowing down, you blame yourself. You think, I must need to work even harder. So you double down. More hours, more tests, less sleep, and your score is still stuck. That's the trap. Now here's what's actually going on. The LSAT is not a content exam. You don't need to memorize facts. You need to train how you think. This is a skills-based test, and skill does not improve with brute force. It improves with feedback. If you don't slow down and analyze your mistakes, you'll keep making the same ones again and again. If you don't understand why an answer is wrong, you can't stop yourself from falling for that trap next time. And if you don't pause to reflect, your brain never gets the chance to learn. So all that effort, it's not wasted, but it's not working either. So let me share with you exactly what to do instead. Step 1, stop taking so many full-length practice tests. 1 exam a week is probably enough. The rest of the week, do smaller sets of 5 or 10 questions at a time, untimed. Focus on getting all of them right with complete confidence. Step 2, after every set, stop immediately and review. Ask yourself, why was the right answer right? Why did I pick the wrong one? And what trap did I fall for? Write it down. Seriously, don't skip this step. That is where the real improvement happens. Then step 3, track 3 things only. First, how accurate you are. Second, how long it takes you per question. And third, whether your energy crashes later in the test. That's it. You don't need fancy charts or analytics, just those 3 numbers. Then, step 4 as a bonus, take 1 day completely off each week. No studying, no videos, no stressing. This gives your brain time to process and recover. Most students fight this, but the truth is that rest is part of training. If you're always on, your brain never resets. And if you follow these steps for just 2 weeks, here's what's going to happen. Your focus will go up, your burnout will go down, and your score will finally have room to rise. It won't feel like magic, it'll feel calm, controlled, and effective. That's how you break the false effort loop. Not by doing more, but by doing things differently. Now let me tell you something that changed everything for me and for nearly every LSAT student I've coached who broke into the 170s. They stopped thinking like students and they started thinking like athletes. Here's what I mean. Students cram, but athletes train. Students try to memorize everything. They underline, they highlight, they take notes, they binge practice tests, hoping that more exposure means more improvement. But that's just not how skill works. Athletes don't just show up and hope for the best. They warm up. They practice one specific thing at a time. They track their performance, they get feedback, and they adjust their training every single week. Athletes are systematic. They know that progress is the result of consistent reps done the right way. And that's how I want you to think about the LSAT. Not as a class, not as a checklist, but as a performance you're training for. Because this test is not about how smart you are. It's about how well you've trained your brain to recognize patterns, filter out traps, and stay sharp under pressure. Let me give you a quick example. Imagine a tennis player who only plays full matches every day, hoping they'll eventually get better. No drills, no coaching, no video review, just match after match, hoping one day they'll magically win. That's what most LSAT students are doing. They're taking full exam after full exam. They're not reviewing. They're not fixing their form. And they're not analyzing their mistakes. Then they wonder why their score stays the same. Meanwhile, the students who treat it like training, they drill one question type at a time. They focus on accuracy first, then speed. They review their misses. They write down patterns. And they adjust their approach every single week. That's the difference. So the shift here is simple but powerful. Stop asking, how many hours should I study? And start asking, how am I training my brain to improve? If your score is stuck, the answer is not more time. It's better structure. That's exactly why we use a system called LASER. It gives you the structure of a training program step by step, just like an athlete follows a training plan before a big competition. And once we plug you into that system, your progress stops being random. You stop guessing what to do each day, and you start knowing exactly what to focus on next. That's how you get out of the 160s. You stop studying like a student, and you start training like a pro. So let's talk about that LASER system that I use with every student who wants to score a 170 or above. LASER is not a gimmick. It is not about shortcuts. It is a step-by-step way to actually train for the LSAT like an athlete getting ready for game day. LASER is an acronym. It stands for Learning, Accuracy, Sections, Exams, and Review. Each one builds on the last. If you skip a step, the whole thing falls apart. But if you follow it in order, that's when you start seeing real consistent gains. Let me walk you through each one. L, the first step, is for learning, and most students skip this step. They go straight into full-length exams or timed drills. But if you haven't learned how the test actually works, you're just guessing. So this step is about learning the rules of the game. For example, how might conditionals work in logical reasoning? How are arguments structured? What common traps do the test makers use over and over again? This is not about memorizing a list. It's about understanding the test's logic. And when you really understand it, you start seeing patterns that never made sense before. You stop falling for obvious traps. You get faster, not because you're rushing, but because you know what to expect. That's learning. The second step is A for accuracy. This is where we build precision. Before we worry about speed, we get your accuracy close to perfect. How? We have students do short sets, maybe just 5 logical reasoning questions at a time, untimed. Yes, untimed. Your only goal is to get them all right. No lucky guesses, no half-baked reasoning. If you get 4 out of 5, that's not good enough. We stop. We figure out why you missed one, and we fix it before moving on. We track your streaks. Can you get 10 in a row? And can you do that 3 times in a row? Once you can, then we introduce the clock. Most students try to rush too early, but speed without accuracy is just fast guessing. That's why this step matters so much. Then the third step, S for sections. Once you've built the accuracy, then we start putting things together. This is where you do 35-minute timed sections, one at a time. But here's the difference. We don't just care about the score. We care about what happens inside the section. If you were confident, but you got a question wrong, that's a problem because it means your confidence is out of sync with your accuracy. And that's something we're going to want to fix right away. That's how we train your judgment, not just your score. Then step 4, E is for exams and endurance. Once your sections are solid, we move to full-length practice tests. But now we treat them like data collection tools, not just practice. We look at, are your scores dropping in the later sections? Are you making more mistakes in reading comp because of fatigue? And are you getting worse at logical reasoning when it comes right after reading comp? Every practice test gives us clues about your endurance, and we adjust your training based on what we see. That's how we build your stamina on purpose, not by accident. Finally, the final step, R for review. This is the most important step and the one almost everybody does wrong. Most students look at the answer key, see they got a question wrong and say, oh, okay, the answer was C. Got it. That is not review. That is trivia. Real review looks like this. Why is the right answer right? Why does the wrong answer feel right? What trap did I fall for? And what will I do next time to avoid it? We make students write this down in what we call a mistake log or an error log. We track the question number, section, type of error, and how we're going to fix it. We even have students redo the same questions 7 days later to prove they've actually learned it. This one-step review is where most of the point gains happen. It's how you stop making the same mistake twice, and it's how you actually train your brain to think like the test makers. So a quick recap of the LASER approach. L is for learning the fundamentals of the test. A is for getting accuracy before adding time. S is for sections to build up your stamina. E is for exams and endurance. And finally, R is for review, deep structured review to fix your thinking. That is the LASER method. It's simple, it's proven, and it works if you follow each step in order. And this is how we help students go from stuck at 160 to scoring 175 and beyond. Now let's talk about what actually happens when you stop guessing and follow a real system like LASER. But first, a quick disclaimer. The stories I'm about to share are 100% real. These are actual students I've worked with, but their results are not typical. Most people don't gain 15-20 points. Some gain more, some gain less, and most students do nothing and their scores stay stuck. Your results depend on a lot of things: how much time you put in, how you study, how coachable you are, and how closely you follow the plan. With that said, let's jump in and start with Maya. When Maya first came to us, she was scoring a 158. She'd already been studying on her own for months. She had all the LSAT books, and she'd taken more than 20 prep tests. She was burnt out, frustrated, and stuck. Here's what we changed for her. We had her stop doing 3 to 4 full exams a week. We slowed everything down, and we focused instead on untimed accuracy and deep review. Finally, we taught her the LASER method step by step, and she followed the plan exactly. After 12 weeks, she scored a 176 and got a full scholarship to Georgetown Law worth over 6 figures. Again, your results may vary. That kind of score jump is rare, but it shows you what's possible with the right strategy, the right feedback, and the right support. The next student I want to share the story of is Vince. Vince started out strong. He was scoring in the mid-160s. He was disciplined, smart, and already studying hard, but he was making one big mistake. He wasn't reviewing with sufficient depth. If he got a question wrong, he would just read or watch the explanation and then move on. No reflection, no pattern tracking, and no real learning. So we changed that. We had him build a mistake log. We forced him to resolve every missed question a week later, and we taught him to spot and fix the thinking patterns that were holding him back. The result, he scored a 173 and got into Columbia. Once again, this result is not typical, but it is absolutely achievable if you're willing to slow down and fix the root of the problem. One more story is the story of Emma. She was stuck at a 164 for several months. She had already studied harder than most people ever will, so she wasn't lazy, she wasn't clueless, she just lacked direction. There was no strategy, no metrics, and no system. So we gave her a structured day-by-day study plan using the laser approach. We implemented weekly progress tracking and personalized feedback after every single exam with regular weekly coaching to keep her accountable. Her final score was a 174, and she got over $90,000 in scholarship offers, including one from Penn. Again, individual results vary. We're not promising that you're going to get into Columbia or Georgetown or Penn. We're not promising you a 20-point jump, but I'll tell you this. Every one of these students had the same problems you might be facing right now. They were stuck in the 160s, they were working hard, but they didn't have a system, and they weren't reviewing the right way. Once they fixed that, their scores changed, their law school options changed, and their financial futures changed. That's what's possible when you stop doing this alone. You stop guessing, and you start following a real system. And you get expert support to make sure you're on the right track every step of the way. Now let's talk about the part most people avoid, the discomfort of changing your approach. Because if you're still watching this, you're probably wondering, is this actually worth it? Or can't I just do it myself? Or what if I don't have time? Or what if I don't get the results? These are all totally fair questions. So let me walk you through each one honestly and tell you exactly who this is for and who it's not for. So the first one, can't I figure this out on my own? Yes, of course you can, and plenty of people do. But here's the real question. How long are you willing to stay stuck? Most of our students come to us after they've already wasted 3, 6, even 12 months trying to piece it all together from Reddit posts, YouTube videos, and outdated prep books. And they're frustrated because they've worked hard, but they still haven't broken through. So, could you figure it out alone? Sure, you could. But if you're already putting in the effort and you're still not seeing results, maybe it's not about trying harder. Maybe it's time to try smarter with a system that actually works. The second big question I get, is LSAT coaching really worth the investment? And look, I get it. LSAT coaching isn't cheap, but neither is law school. Tuition, living expenses, interest, you're looking at $200,000, maybe even $300,000 for a JD easy. Now think about this. One extra point on the LSAT could be the difference between zero scholarship money and 6 figures in tuition discounts. We've had students invest a couple $1,000s in LSAT coaching and walk away with $100,000 in scholarship offers. Is that guaranteed? Of course not. But if you knew that a better LSAT score could save you $50,000, $100,000, even $150,000, isn't it worth investing in getting that score? This is not about paying for LSAT coaching. It's about investing in your future because the return can be life-changing. Students will also ask, what if I'm too busy? Let me ask you something. Do you think the students who got into Harvard Law, Columbia, or NYU have no jobs, no responsibilities, and all the free time in the world? Of course not. Our top students are working 30, 40 hours a week. Some of them are parents. Some are in school full-time. Some are doing all three. But we build your study plan around your real life. You don't need to have 8 hours a day to study for the LSAT. What you need is focus. Just a couple hours a day with a real plan can move the needle more than 6 hours of guessing. It's not about how much time you have. It's about what you do with the time you've got. Now, students will also ask, what if I don't improve? Totally fair question. Because of course, nobody wants to waste their time or their money. That's why we're selective about who we take on. And we also offer a higher score guarantee, meaning if you follow the program, you'll get a full refund. Of course, we cannot promise you any particular score. This is meant to serve as a risk mitigation, meaning if you put in the work on your end, we want to remove all the risk for you because we stand behind the service that we provide. Of course, if you're not ready to follow the system, if you're looking for some magic bullet, or you just want somebody to motivate you without you doing the work, this is not going to be the right fit. But if you're open to feedback, if you're coachable, if you've already been putting in effort and you're still stuck, and if you know that your current score does not reflect your potential, this might be the thing that finally helps you break through. You're going to get structure, you're going to get expert feedback, and you'll stop spinning your wheels wondering what to do next. So of course, this is not for everyone. It's not for those looking for the cheapest option or for those who want to cram a week before the test. And if you're not ready to take this seriously, it's definitely not for you. But if you are aiming for a top score and you want to get into a top school, and if you want real support from someone who's been doing this for the past 20 years, then this might be exactly what you need. So if you watched this far, chances are you care. You're not casually browsing for LSAT tips. You're here because you've hit a wall. You've been working hard and you've been doing the drills, but your score hasn't budged, and you're tired of wondering why. Maybe today gave you some answers. Maybe you saw where things have been breaking down, not because you weren't trying, but because no one showed you how to train the right way. And if that's the case, then that's a win already. Because now you know it's not about working more. It's about working differently. It's about slowing down, focusing on accuracy, and reviewing with purpose. It's about training like an athlete, step by step, with a system that builds real skill over time. This is not about hype. It's not about shortcuts. It's about having a clear process that actually works. And some students see that and say, cool, I've got what I need now. I'm going to apply this myself. Others realize they want help putting the system into place. And if that's you, you can check out the links below to find out more and to book a call with me and my team. We'd be glad to help you out. But either way, that clarity is powerful, because once you know what's been missing, you stop blaming yourself. You stop wasting time, and you start getting better for real. No pressure, no push, just one final thought. Don't settle for a score that doesn't reflect what you're capable of. Don't let the LSAT decide your future just because you didn't have the right tools. You've already put in the effort, and now you know how to make it count.